Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of the Monsters Den. The co-captain's chair, as always, Mr. Chris Alo. Good evening.
Good evening, Pete. How's everybody doing?
We're going back to British horror time once again. It seems like we can't go
The
too long
classics.
without dipping back into British horror. So we have long talked about doing a show about our favorite Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing pairings, those team ups where they appear together, whether or not they are together on screen for much in the films, or whether they're both in the same movie but they don't appear on screen much. But the film is amazing. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. There's 24 of them, correct? Do I have that number
Yeah,
correct?
that's what I. There was more than I thought, to be honest. There was a.
Yeah.
There is a. In full. What's the term I'm looking for? Full revelation here. There's a couple weird ones. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I never saw that one. There was like a comedy one too that they did where they had a cameo. I don't remember the name, but I'm like, I didn't even know about that one.
Yeah,
So
especially later on, I think like in the late
yeah,
70s. And yeah, there was a bunch of them. But what I was amazed is that they actually appeared in four films together. Not, they weren't on screen together, but they were in, I think, three films prior to Horror of Dracula together.
yes,
Yeah, but I think Horror of Dracula was I'm sorry, Curse of
Curse of
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. Yep.
Curse of Frankenstein was the first film where they were actually on screen together, but they were in three films before that, which I
Yeah,
had no
I
idea.
had no idea.
Yeah,
Same. I was
which is
like,
pretty
wow,
interesting.
look at that.
Yeah. So for me, in kind of going through this exercise, I looked at all the 24 films, and, I could discount a lot of them. I was like, all right, yeah. I think I came up with about a dozen that were, I really love a lot, and I love them together in the film. And then I had to pare that down to five. And that was interesting. But I think, in the end, the five were not surprises for me.
Oh yeah.
There are a couple maybe, and I'm looking at my honorable mentions list here, and there's some good ones there too. But I'm pretty happy with my five, I think so. But I'll let Chris kick us off with his number five.
Okay. Yep. I mean, for me, it was pretty easy. I don't want to say I took 2 seconds, but when I looked at the list, I was like, yeah, this was fairly simple for me because they really are my five favorite Christopher Lee Peter Cushing movies that I excuse me, that I do revisit over and over again. And I'm just going in chronological order. The first one, of course, 1957's Curse of Frankenstein. I mean, I know we've talked about this in depth, but man, it's a classic. It's really the one that started it all. Big worldwide hit. I know. When I got the Blu-ray and we talked about it last year, I kind of forgot how. Wow, geez, Peter Cushing was such a scumbag in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's I kind of forgot. Yeah, Christopher Lee is somewhat sympathetic and but also at the same time, somewhat scary. And yeah, it's a classic.
Yeah, I wasn't going to do it this way, but I think I'm going to go in chronological as well, because that kind of makes sense. So yeah, I'm also going to go with Curse of Frankenstein, of course, directed by Terrence Fisher, which directed quite a few of these that I'm going to be talking about today. But a interesting film and noteworthy. This is the first Frankenstein film for Hammer. This, of course, comes. This was '57, so this comes about. Oh, when Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein was what, 46.
Yeah, 46, 48.
48, something like that. So it's roughly a decade later.
I think this was the first color, right?
Yes, first color film for Hammer. Yes, absolutely. And, they had a rough time with trying to get the rights to the character from Universal. And the way they went about doing that and getting the okay to go ahead with do this is that they agreed to not make the creature look like, obviously, the Karloff or the Glenn Strange version with the flat head and the electrodes and all that kind of stuff, which is why, Mr. Lee looks so different and pretty horrific, actually.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, horrific still by today's standards, but God, people must have been screaming in the audience in 1957.
Yeah, I mean, color and blood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And operations and all this kind of weird morbid stuff. And yeah, pretty groundbreaking film. And this was also the first starring role for Peter Cushing, which also I did not know. So pretty.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I did not. Well. Did not know that either.
Yeah. but yeah, I think Cushing's, again, Lee kind of complained about this afterwards because he didn't have any vocal, any lines. He just basically was just kind of shambling about. So he did not want to do any of the sequels to this. But I think Cushing's Victor Frankenstein became iconic. He became the monster in pretty much all these films. Yeah. And like you said, just a kind of real scumbag and not a good person. Just really, especially here, he's young, really driven, really tortured, and his mind just gets really twisted. And he's just so obsessed with his creation and his experiments. So yeah, great film. Absolutely great film.
Absolutely.
So that's my number 5 as well. So back to you.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Oh, right. We're going to chronological, so it doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter yet.
Yeah. All right. This one is, I think, the greatest vampire movie of all time, the greatest Dracula movie of all time. I don't know what more could be said about it, but yeah, Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing are so young in this, and this has the restored Japanese footage, which is just amazing to see the extra blood and special effects. And it's 1958's Horror of Dracula. And I know for me, I was always a big Christopher Lee fan. I'm actually, Lee is my middle name. I'm sure I've mentioned it before. And I always think of this movie when I can't remember if I was in kindergarten or first grade, but my mother enrolled me in CCD, the after school religious,
Me too, yeah.
So I remember my mom goes to me the day before we went, she's like, well, you know how to make the sign of the cross, right? I go, uh-huh. So she goes, all right, show me. So I went like this, because that's what what Peter Cushing does with the candlesticks in House of Dracula. Of course, I couldn't remember the names of everybody, but I've seen Peter Cushing as a kid on TV doing it, and I always remember that. But man, this movie's just incredible. I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen it. The ending has been ripped off so many times, and Fright Night, and From Dusk Till Dawn, and countless other movies. It's just a like I said, a 5-star classic. I think the greatest vampire movie of all time. Yeah,
I wouldn't argue that. I'm going to go with it as well. I got a different Blu-ray here, but I mean, yeah, look at that. Look at that. Great. That's Dracula right there. And this comes from someone who loves Bela Lugosi and loves his version of Dracula, but this is menacing, just terrifying Dracula, right? This 100%. Is violent Dracula. And Hammer, struck while the iron was hot. Curse of Frankenstein was barely a year old when this came out. So they were like,
really crazy if you think about it.
So shortly after, right? They were like, we got to get these two guys in a film together. So of course you got Lee as Dracula and Cushing is Professor Van Helsing or Dr. Van Helsing. And once again, Terrence Fisher directing the film. This is just absolute classic. You're right. One of the greatest Draculas in Christopher Lee, one of the greatest Dracula films. And it's funny how even though Cushing would play Van Helsing again in a couple of other films, there were a lot of Dracula films. He wasn't in all of them. So it's interesting how, like in the Frankenstein films, Lee would do none of the follow-ups, none of the sequels. But and Cushing then in the sequels to the Dracula, you had Cushing, but not consistently.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Interesting. I mean, the direct sequel to Horror of Dracula, which was their next, Dracula movie, which is a great movie. Brides of Dracula. There's no Dracula. He's not in it.
Right.
And I mean, that movie is great. Could be the second best Dracula movie of all time.
Really good, yeah.
But man, if Christopher Lee was in that one, it would only be even that much better.
Yeah. So and ironically, he had the same issue with this as he did with Curse of Frankenstein, because he was like a very proud guy. And he's like, I don't want to do these roles where I have nothing to say. Right. And he wanted more money. And he's like, I'll do them. And I think that was a battle they had with him throughout the whole series, where he complained about the plots. He complained about his lines or lack of lines. So he kept asking for more money and more money. And when they did Brides of Dracula, he was like, no, I'm out.
Yeah.
And they had no choice but to fill a spot with someone else. But yeah, awesome film.
Which is ironic because if I'm not mistaken, right, it's Dracula Prince of Darkness is the one where he has no lines, no dialogue at all.
Zero. Yeah. Yeah, at least in here he's got a couple of them.
Yeah,
Not much, but a couple of them. Yeah, Prince of Darkness, nothing.
yeah. So
I think that was the icing on the cake. He's after that film, he was like, "Nah, I'm done with this."
But he still came back.
He still came back. Well, it's all about the money, right? So
of course. And speaking of which, I was telling Pete before we jumped on. I'm a huge toy fan, especially Mego Toys. Mego Toys did a whole line of new horror figures. They just did the Christopher Lee, which of course I could not find. I have it in my garage, but last night my buddy Sean gave me the new Peter Cushing Van Helsing figure, and there's a second Van Helsing coming, and I believe there's a Christopher Lee Frankenstein, and there's a whole. I mean, I was telling Pete, I found every other. I found the new Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, and the Wolfman.
You're killing me with these.
Son of Frankenstein.
Oh man.
Chucky.
Oh, for our loyal viewer who keeps asking, when are we going to mention Child's Play or Chucky on the channel? There you go. There's your first.
Yeah, no, I like the Child's Play movies.
Yeah.
Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Nice.
The Exorcist, even though I really think that's kind of a crappy looking figure.
Yeah. Wow, you got a shitload of them.
And Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Awesome. Wow.
But I could not find. I have the Mummy, and I couldn't find the Mummy, Christopher Lee, Dracula, or Bela Lugosi Dracula. But I have them, but I just couldn't find them.
Those look great.
I'll find them. I'll find them next week.
I got no room for them though. I would love to have all of those.
The best
I have a bunch of Universal stuff, and I got Godzilla and Ray Harryhausen, tons of Marvel stuff. And, yeah.
I mean, not to try and sell you, Pete. The crazy thing is, they're like $17-$18.
Yeah, you can't beat
they're
that.
so cheap.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
They're so cheap.
Can't beat that.
It's like crack. I can't stay away. I
know. Being a collector.
Oh, it's a curse.
The curse is real, folks. It's very real. It's very real. All right, what do you got? What's your next choice?
Right, my number 3. I actually don't have the disc. I thought I had it, but I just bought it on Blu-ray, even though it's out of print. I bought the Hammer box set that you have, 1959's The Mummy. It's my all-time favorite Mummy movie, and I mean, I gotta be honest. Other than that's the one. Yep, I just got that off eBay or Amazon. It was like $4 or $5.
Weird that this is out of print already. It's like,
oh, totally. It's not that old, and it's going for huge money. So I lucked out to find one for under $50 used.
Yeah.
But man, The Mummy is just great. I mean, to me, one of the most shocking scenes in horror cinema is when Christopher Lee as the Mummy, all wrapped up in the bandages, just bursts through Peter Cushing's library there, and he's just so menacing. And Peter Cushing shoots him with the shotgun, and his chest explodes. So good, so great. I mean, just amazing. None of the mummies come anywhere close, other than the one with the really hot girl. Was it Valerie Leone? Was that Curse of the Mummies?
Blood from the Mummy's tomb.
Blood from the Mummy. That's it. And Blood from the Mummy's side boob. That one's a lot of fun. But The Mummy with Lee and Cushing, best mummy movie in my opinion of all time.
Fastest mummy on the face of the earth, right?
Totally. And again, menacing. I mean, Boris Karloff just sits there and he like barely moves. Christopher Lee's kicking in your fucking door and chasing you. I'm like, whoa.
I actually like Lon Chaney Jr.'s mummy. I thought he looked great, but he moved way too slow. But still, at least he would go and all he did was kill people, right? But Christopher Lee's mummy is just rampaging all over the place. Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, another creature that he played that afterwards, he's like, nope, not doing that again.
Right. And they kept cranking out mummy movies, but didn't get him back.
No, not with him. All right. My next one, 1959. It's amazing how many of these films just boom, 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 right in a row. The Hound of the Baskervilles.
That's a classic. I almost put that one.
Would you believe this is one of the very few Hammer films that has not been released on Blu-ray yet?
Wow.
I don't know what they're
caught
waiting
it
for.
about 2-3 months ago on Turner Classic Movies. They ran it one night, and I DVR'd it.
So good.
Oh,
So
yeah,
good.
it's great.
I mean, Peter Cushing as Sherlock Holmes, great casting.
Yeah.
You got Andre Morell as Watson, and you got Christopher Lee, who plays Sir Henry Baskerville in this. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with this story, it's it's the story of the Baskervilles, this really rich family who live in this mansion out near the moors, and people are getting killed by this mysterious hound who creeps and lurks at night on the moors. There's poisonous spiders, all this kind of stuff, and it's kind of like a whodunit. And in typical Sherlock Holmes fashion, Holmes and Watson are tasked with trying to figure out what's at the root of these murders and what have you. And great cast. Andre Morell is another treasure. He's such a great actor, and he's perfect as Watson. And while these two guys don't work together in the film, they're actually kind of at odds with each other, specifically at the end. I think they're just, Lee is perfect as the kind of, spoiled dirtbag rich guy, right? And they're just so good together. When they are on screen together, it's electric, even though, like I said, it's not like a partnership film by them, but it doesn't really need to be. And I've always liked this. For me, this is one of the best Sherlock Holmes adaptions ever, and a really classy Hammer production here. I wish they would come out with this on Blu-ray already. I've had this DVD like a million years, but yeah, great film. That's my number 3.
Absolutely. It's a classic for sure. Let's see. My next one is from, I believe it's 1972. And it's a movie that I always used to see floating around as a kid. And then when I finally, I think I first watched it on VHS. I didn't see it on cable or anything. I was like, man, this movie is a blast. It's so much fun. And it's Horror Express with Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, Telly Savalas, and it's really very similar. If you haven't seen it, it's very similar to The Thing. In fact, when I was doing my Hudson Horror show, my horror marathon, where I would do like 5-6 movies in a day, I didn't actually realize it until that day when I sat and watched everything, because I did Horror Express and John Carpenter's The Thing on the same marathon.
Oh, no way. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the funny thing is, so many times people would like connect the dots and see things that weren't really there. Like if I played something with, Godzilla, they would connect it to something like with Blue Oyster Cult. But, this was just purely by accident, but nobody connected the dots, because the two movies really are so similar.
Yeah.
With a strange alien being transported, on a train, and then it, reactivates and comes alive and slowly assimilates, takes over the people on the train as it's barreling along. And it's a lot of fun. It's definitely, in recent years, I think it's gotten more notoriety. This is one of those ones that maybe it was a rights thing. It always turned up on like public domain VHS tapes and public domain DVDs. But it's a blast. It's very just completely entertaining, and you're definitely kind of like, all right, where is this going? Which you can't, like most modern horror today. I'm always like, I know exactly where this is going, but this is like, I have no idea. But it's still a blast.
Yeah, I'll skip ahead a little bit because that's all was also on my list here.
Nice.
I like Horror Express. This is kind of like 2 films in one, because in the beginning, it's like, the whole premise is, and what I love, this actually, I think, is my favorite of all of their films where they actually team up on screen quite a bit.
Right.
I think they're perfect together in here, both of these guys, because they kind of play, they're sort of friends, but they're sort of rivals because they're in like the same field. They're both like kind of like scientists, anthropologists, so to speak. So, this whole story is Peter Cushing plays an anthropologist who brings this like ancient and like humanoid, right, that like was frozen in a iceberg somewhere, right, like old caveman or something.
Just
at
like
least that's what they think,
like
right?
The Thing, yeah.
Right. So they bring him in this big crate onto this, was it the Trans-Siberian Express train or whatever, going across Europe. And then he finds Christopher Lee, who is his kind of friend, but kind of rival. Right. So he's hesitant to give him too much information about what he's got. But like Chris said, you think it's just this kind of like, and then obviously the ice starts melting. And we notice that this creature, this humanoid, anthropoid, whatever, comes to life and people start dying. But then all of a sudden it switches and becoms this total like science fiction thing.
Yeah.
With like aliens and the creature is actually taken over by an alien, probably millennium ago, right? And then was frozen. And now this alien being can actually transport itself into any living thing. And it can take, it can erase their minds and all this kind of crazy stuff. So it becomes almost like a 10 Little Indians thing, and people one by one start getting killed off on the train. And it's a crazy fun film. I dig it. And the Lee and Cushing work so well together, and a great like kind of like co-starring role for Telly Savalas as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Who was a huge star in the 70s.
Yeah. So this was good. This was actually a Spanish film. This was not a Hammer, not a Amicus, none of that stuff, and directed by Eugenio Martin. So pretty cool stuff. So yeah, that was on my list as well. Back to you.
All right, so this is my last one, and this was a movie that a lot of people shit on, but I don't know why. I fell in love with it at an early age. But I like it because it's part of the Dracula series. It's the last one that features both Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. But it's got kind of a different slant to it, because Dracula has this whole end of the world thing that he's trying to accomplish, and he's almost, Christopher Lee is Dracula, but at the same time, he's almost kind of like a Bond villain in this, which is interesting because he was a Bond villain around the same time. And it's the Satanic Rites of Dracula, which was released in America under the title, which is a terrible title, Count Dracula and His Vampire Bride.
Yeah, no good.
But either title, it's just a fun... it's just a fun Dracula movie, in the modern times, as modern as they took it, because I think this was 1973. I think
early 70s.
But I don't think it came out in the States till, God, I think like 70 something. I know I have the one sheet. I almost want to say like 78. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but this one took quite a few years to come out. But it's a blast. I love it. And but a lot of people hate it, and a lot of people are like, oh, it sucks compared to horror Dracula. Yeah, you can't compare it, but I just think it's a blast.
It's good. Yeah, that and Dracula AD both have their
it's another one,
I think, and it's notable because you got Cushing is back as Van Helsing again, which he was kind of missed in the series. So yeah, I dig it. I think it's in my honorable mentions. I like that film a lot too. Yeah,
72 is the one with the groove rock band. Was it Stonehenge, something like that? Stone something. And again, that's another one that a lot of people shit on, but I always liked it. I thought it made sense to jump forward into modern times, because what else were you going to do after 5 other Dracula movies? And by the time you get to number 6, it's like, all right, well.
Yeah. And Dracula AD, that's the one with Carolyn Monroe, right?
Yes, I do believe. God. Who looks amazing.
Oh, yeah. What a beauty.
Who herself was a Bond girl.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yep. All right. My number 5, I had a lot to choose from. And I was like, I have a real love for this film. The Gorgon from 1964.
That's a great one.
Right there. Basically, the Gorgon, Medusa. You got to get past the low budget, really horrible looking snakes in her hair. But I think it's just a great story. Another great pair up between Lee and Cushing. So basically the story, people are turning up dead all over the place. turned to stone by some evil force. Nobody knows what's going on. Christopher Lee plays Professor Carl Meister. Cushing is Dr. Namaroth. Terrence Fisher directs. Basically, they're here to solve this mystery about why these people are dying. What's, finding out who is this mysterious Gorgon, right? There's all these myths and all that kind of stuff. They don't appear in too many scenes together, but the whole climax of the film is them working together here. And it's really great. It's kind of like the whole film, you're trying to like, who is the Gorgon? And then at the end, it's like, it's kind of like a cool reveal at the end. But just a really good one-off for Hammer, I think, because they did, they were really well known for a lot of the different series they did. Obviously, the Mummy films, the Dracula films, the Frankenstein films. But I like a lot of the one-offs that they did. And, the Two-Face of Dr. Jekyll is a lot of fun too. And there's a whole bunch more. But yeah, that's my number 5. Lee and Cushing film. So, got any honorable mentions?
The one we just mentioned, Dracula AD 1972. I always like the setting of modern times and the groovy rock band, and of course Carolyn Monroe. So that would probably be my my next one.
Yeah, I got a couple here. How about Amicus's The Skull?
I don't think I've ever seen that one, and I was going to say the other one I've always wanted to see, but I never did, is the House of Long Shadows from 1983. That's Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, but also John Carradine and I think Vincent Price, right?
Yeah, I have that. That's fun.
I heard it's terrible.
It's fun because all of them are in a film together, but they're all really old. It's fun. I have it. It's fun. It's worth seeing. Yeah, it's not a bona fide classic by any means, but it's not bad. But The Skull is really good. In fact, this is a great 2-pack if they're still available, because The Man Who Cheat Death is great. So you got a Hammer film and you got a Amicus film all in one film. And this has got
that one I never saw.
Oh yeah, Anton Diffring. He's so good. He's so evil. This dude. He's awesome. More Amicus, The House of Drip Blood.
Yes, I'll almost put that one on my list.
With
Dr. Terror's
House of Horrors. Yep.
Could be the sexiest vampire ever.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. I also Satanic Rites of Dracula. Here's another cool one that I wish would come on Blu-ray. This is really good. Lee and Cushing in I, Monster, which is basically Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
That's not on Blu-ray?
Not on Blu-ray. No, I've been looking. And this is is this Amicus or Tygon? I don't remember. I think it's Amicus, actually. Yeah, I think this is an Amicus production, but this is great. So Christopher Lee plays Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and really good role. And they're both excellent here. Here they are on the back together. I wish this would get released on Blu-ray, because the DVD is pretty shitty. It's like some retro media version.
Oh, those are the really cheap ones.
Yeah, terrible. And then I also had The Mummy on as an honorable mention too. So, but there's others. I mean, there's
24 of them.
It's 24. I'm trying to think of any others that I. Scream and Scream Again. They're together. The Creeping Flesh. That's a really good one.
That is a good one.
Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. Yeah, so those are the really good ones that we mentioned. Another good one too is what the hell is it called? It's a good like mystery thriller. It's called Nothing But the Night. And they're in that entire film. That's really good. I have that on DVD. Yeah. That's also.
I saw that at a drive-in, probably about like 15 years ago.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, they did like a retro night, and they did a bunch of British 70s horror, and that was one of them.
Yeah, that's a good one too. That's a good one. So there you have it, everybody. Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, our favorite films with the two of them together. In the comments below, please list your favorite Lee and Cushing pairings. Could be some of these, could be other ones. Like I said, there is 24 of them in total, so a lot to choose from. So any last words about these two legends? I miss them both, man.
Miss them both, man. I often say, Jesus, I wish these guys were still around to do the horror conventions. I know Christopher Lee did a few appearances. I don't remember anything local. I remember he did one. I want to say like Baltimore in maybe like the early 90s or the late 80s. But man, these are two guys. Like if I could only bring two guys back to do conventions before I do, no offense anybody, before I do Karloff and Lugosi, I'm doing Lee and Cushing. I'm bringing them back to just do autograph signings.
Yeah, I love all four of them. Obviously, I think for me, the icons of horror are these two guys, Lugosi, Karloff, and Chaney Jr. I mean, those are just for me the big five.
Yeah.
But there's something about these two. No matter this is the cool thing about them. No matter how bad the movie might be, you're going to get a top-notch performance from both of them. I mean, have you ever watched the film or said, "Oh my God, Cushing was awful in that movie"?
Right. That's
not possible. Point. Right? I mean, two of the greatest actors of all time, horror or not. I think any movie that they're in, when they're on the screen,
it makes it worthwhile.
It makes it worthwhile.
100% right.
Yeah, even though the movie may be kind of shitty, because I mean, let's face it, Lugosi had some bad films, Karloff had some bad films, Chaney certainly had some bad films, right? But these two guys, and I'm talking about performances. These two guys may have been in some shitty films too, but their performances were never bad.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's a really good point.
Yeah. So, yeah, great stuff. I think both are real gentlemen. Were real gentlemen, and you can tell, and they were really close friends too.
I was gonna say, plus that's so great that they were, so close and so friendly in real life.
Yeah.
I remember there's somewhere it's on some Hammer documentary where Christopher Lee goes to visit Peter Cushing, not that soon before he passed away. And it was, you could tell that they were, touched to see each other again, because it'd be a little bit since they were in each other's company. But yeah, just a great pairing for sure.
Yeah, I don't remember one of the films on my, I don't know if it was Horror Express or one of the later Dracula films. Cushing's wife had just died, and they had been married for many, many years, and he was absolutely devastated and went to a deep bout of depression over that. And he had signed on to do a couple films, I believe, for Hammer. And, he would withdraw from the films because he's like, I just can't, I can't, I'm having such a hard time dealing with the loss of my wife. And Christopher Lee, his good friend, was able to kind of get him to come back to work to help him get over the loss of his wife. And then Cushing always gave him so much credit after that for helping to bring him out from the abyss. So they had a real strong bond up until, Cushing passed away.
Yeah. And if I remember right, after Christopher Lee helped him, that's when Peter Cushing really kind of threw himself into work, because I think that's what kind of kept his mind off his wife. And that's why, man, in the 70s, he was banging out movies.
Yeah.
And you're right. No matter how bad the movie was, he was great. He was always great in it. He always made it worthwhile to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. I can go back to the shelf right now and pull out 5 horrible films that he's in, but in every one of them, he's great. He's great.
No doubt.
Yeah. So cool. All right, everybody. So like I said, put your favorite Lee and Cushing pairings in the comments below, and there's plenty to choose from. So I want to thank Chris for once again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Helping out with this. This is a lot of fun talking about some of our favorite actors of the horror genre. So we'll be doing this again. Maybe one of these days we'll do a Lugosi and Karloff pairing episode, because they paired a lot of films together too. But
that's true. Yeah.
That might be a little easier though, because I don't think it was quite as many as these guys.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. We got part 2 of TV horror coming up next week, right? Is that what we're doing next week?
Yes, I do believe, which is good, because I have been boning up on the TV horror. Because there's quite a few that I had seen, 40 something years ago and needed to rewatch.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, they still hold up.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what we found out in part 1, right? It's like, these are still pretty damn good. So absolutely. All right, cool. So stay tuned for that next week, everybody. Thanks for watching this edition of The Monsters Den. For Chris Alo, I am Pete Pardo. Have a ghoulishly wonderful rest of the evening. Bye-bye.